Hello everyone, it's me, Lazarus, and today I'm gonna be reading to y'all The Whiteout. I used to be a winter caretaker for a remote lodge in Maine. There's a reason I moved to the desert. I need to write this down. I kept it bottled up for 40 years, but with winter approaching again, the nightmares are coming back. I wake up shivering, swearing I can smell ozone, wet fur, and copper. I am posting this here because if I tell my therapist the full truth, she'll think I'm experiencing some kind of delayed on-site schizophrenia. But I know what I saw. I know what chased me. From 2017 to 2019, I worked as a winter caretaker for a massive privately owned hunting lodge in the Allagash region, northern Maine. The property was over 60 miles from the nearest town. My job was simple: keep the pipes from freezing, clear the snow from the roof so it wouldn't cave in, and maintain a presence to deter poachers or squatters. For the first 2 years, it was a dream job. I am an introvert by nature, and the isolation was peaceful. I read, chopped wood, and snowshoed. I had a satellite phone for emergencies, but my main lifeline was a powerful VHF radio-based station. The incident happened in January of my third year. The National Weather Service had been warning us about a massive nor'easter for a week. They were calling for 3 feet of snow and whiteout conditions, with wind chills plummeting to 40 below zero. I spent 2 days preparing, stacking cordwood on the covered porch, checking the backup generator, and topping off the fuel in the snowmobile. By Tuesday afternoon, the storm hit. It was biblical. The wind howled with a physical force and made the massive log cabin shudder. Outside the reinforced windows, the world was nothing but a churning, violent wall of white. At 9 p.m., I was sitting by the wood stove, reading a paperback, when the VHF radio crackled to life. It was scanning the emergency frequencies, heavily distorted by the atmospheric interference of the storm. Then I heard it. "Hello? Can anyone hear me? Please." I dropped my book and lunged across the room, grabbing the mic. "This is Allagash Station 4. I hear you. What is your emergency? Over." A burst of static. Then I heard it. "My dad, he fell in the ravine. He's hurt really bad. It's so cold. Please help." It was a young girl's voice. She sounded maybe 10 or 11 years old, her voice trembling violently with cold and terror. My blood ran cold. Nobody should have been out in these conditions. The logging roads had been impassable for days. "Okay, sweetheart, listen to me," I said, trying to keep my voice steady. "I need to know where you are. Do you know where you are?" "We were hiking near the Blackwood Ridge." "The Blackwood Ridge? The trail with the old fire tower? Please hurry. He won't wake up." Blackwood Ridge. That was only about 5 miles from my location, but in a blizzard, 5 miles might as well be on the moon. Still, I couldn't just sit there in front of a warm fire while a child froze to death next to her injured father. If I waited for the state police or search and rescue to mobilize, they'd be dead. They'd be dead by morning. "I'm coming," I said. "Stay exactly where you are. Do you have shelter? A tent?" There was no answer, just the rushing hiss of static. I threw on my extreme weather gear, thermal base layers, insulated bibs, a heavy parka, and a balaclava, and goggles. I packed an emergency medical kit, thermal blankets, and a thermos of boiling water into the cargo box of the snowmobile. I also strapped my 12-gauge shotgun to the side rack. Out there, a desperate moose or hungry predators were a real threat. Stepping out of the cabin was like stepping into a jet engine. The wind physically pushed me backwards. I fired up the snowmobile, the headlight beam illuminating a tunnel of snow, and headed out towards Blackwood Ridge. Navigation was a nightmare. I had to rely entirely on my GPS and my intimate knowledge of the terrain, moving at a crawl so I wouldn't slam into a buried stump or drive off a cliff. It took me almost an hour to reach the base of the ridge. The trees were ancient pines, growing close together, which thankfully cut down the wind slightly. "Hello!" I screamed over the idling engine of the snowmobile. "Is anyone there?" Nothing. I left the snowmobile idling so I wouldn't lose the headlight beam, grabbed my high-powered spotlight, and started trudging through the waist-deep snow towards the old fire tower coordinates. That's when I found the tracks. The spotlight caught a line of deep depressions in the snow, barely visible before the wind tried to fill them in. I followed them, my heart pounding with hope. I was close, I thought. But as I looked closer at the tracks, my stomach dropped. They weren't boot prints. They were bare feet, massive, elongated, bare human feet. Worse than that was the stride length. Between each left and right footprint was a gap of at least 7 feet. No human could leap like that through 3 feet of fresh powder. Whatever made these tracks was simply walking. I unholstered my shotgun, the heavy metal freezing through my thick gloves. I followed the tracks for another 100 yards until they stopped at the base of a massive dead oak tree. I shined my spotlight around. No girl, no injured father, no signs of a camp. Then my VHF radio that was clipped to my chest harness crackled to life. "Please hurry. You won't wake up." It was the exact same audio clip, the exact same inflection, the exact same pause, the exact same trembling of cadence. It was not a live broadcast. It sounded like it was a recording this time. But it wasn't coming through my radio. But the sound was coming from the canopy. The sound was coming from the canopy of the dead oak tree above me. I whipped the spotlight upward, and then I saw it. Crouched on a thick branch, maybe 30 feet off the ground, was something that defies every law of nature. It was impossibly tall and gaunt, its limbs long and spidery, wrapped tightly around the trunk, frostbitten. Its skin was the color of frostbitten flesh, a molted, sickly grayish blue. It had no clothes, completely exposed to the sub-zero temperatures, yet it didn't shiver. Its face, oh God, its face. It looked like a human skull that had been stretched and pulled, with tight, leathery skin pulled over the bone. It had hollow, pitch-black pits for eyes. When the beam of my spotlight hit it, it opened its mouth, its jaw unhinged, dropping abnormally low. And the little girl's voice came out perfectly clear, echoing in the howling wind. "I'm coming. Stay exactly where you are." It was mimicking me. It was mimicking what I said over the radio, back at the cabin. Pure, paralyzing terror locked every muscle in my body. It wasn't a lost hiker. It was a lure. It had learned the distress frequencies. It had learned what to say to pull someone out of the safety of their shelter and into the deep woods. The creature's long, multi-jointed fingers twitched. It started to uncoil from the branch, moving with a horrifying jerking speed, like a spider descending a web. The spell of horror broke. I spun around and ran. I plunged through the waist-deep snow, moving entirely on adrenaline, my lungs burning with the freezing air. Behind me, I heard a sound that I would never forget, a heavy, wet thud as the creature dropped from the tree into the snow, followed by the terrifying crunch, crunch, crunch of a massive bipedal stride tearing through the drifts behind me. It was fast, incredibly fast. I could smell it now, a pungent, horrific odor of rotted meat and metallic ozone right through the cold air. Please hurry, please hurry, please hurry, it chanted behind me. The little girl's voice wrapped into a manic, rapid-fire loop. I reached the snowmobile, threw myself on the seat, slammed the throttle forward, and held on for dear life. The machine lurched, the tread spinning wildly before catching traction and rocketing forward. I didn't look back. I drove with reckless, suicidal speed, dodging trees by inches, launching over snowbanks, the suspension bottoming out violently. I pushed the engine past the red line. The roar of the motor, the only thing drowning out the sound of whatever was pursuing me. For the entire 5 miles back to the lodge, I felt its presence just behind the edge of my headlight beam. I could see the shadows shifting in the periphery of the woods, a massive, loping shape, keeping pace with a snowmobile doing 50 miles an hour through a blizzard. I burst into the clearing of the lodge, sliding the snowmobile to a violent sideways stop near the porch. I didn't bother turning it off. I scrambled up the stairs, fumbled with my keys with numb, shaking hands. I threw the heavy oak door open and locked it behind me. I threw the deadbolts. I dragged the heavy wooden dining table in the front of the door. I ran from room to room, pulling the heavy storm shutters closed over the windows and locking them down. Then I sat in the center of the living room, gripping the shotgun, staring at the front door. For an hour there was nothing but the howling of the wind. I started to convince myself I had outrun it. Then came the tapping. Tap, tap, tap. It was coming from the second-story window, the window to my bedroom. 30 feet off the ground. There was no balcony there, no ladder. Tap, tap, tap. Then the voice filtered down through the floorboards. It wasn't the little crow anymore. It was my voice. Hello, is anyone there? This is Allagash Station 4. I backed into the reinforced concrete pantry in the basement. It's where we kept the dry goods and the secondary generator. It had a solid steel fire door. I went inside, locked it, and turned off my flashlight and sat in the pitch black. I sat there for 3 days. I listened as the entity circled the cabin. I listened to it test the heavy doors. I listened to it climb the exterior log walls with scratching, scraping sounds that vibrated through the foundation. And for 3 days, I listened to it circle through its repertoire of stolen voices, men, women, children, crying, screaming, begging. It never breached the cabin. The heavy timber and reinforced shutters held. On the fourth day, the storm finally broke. The wind died down, and the agonizingly long silence stretched on for hours. When I finally dared to open the door and climb the stairs, the cabin was freezing. The fire had long since died. I looked out the second-story window. The snow was pristine and white, glittering in the morning sun. But all around the perimeter of the lodge, circling it dozens of times, were massive, elongated, bare footprints. There were deep gouges in the heavy logs near the roofline. I packed my truck. I didn't wait for the plow. I chained my tires and drove out, plowing through the drifts, determined to abandon the vehicle and walk if it got stuck. I made it to the main highway by nightfall. I quit via email. I forfeited my final paycheck. I packed up my apartment in Maine, moved to Arizona, in the middle of the desert, where you can see for miles in every direction. I don't know what is out there in the deep winter Maine woods, but I know it's old, I know it's intelligent, and I know that it uses our own humanity against us. If you are ever in the deep wilderness and you hear a distress call that seems impossible, keep walking. Do not go looking for it, because whatever is making that sound isn't looking for help, it's hunting. Hello everyone, it's me, Lazarus, and today I'm going to be reading to y'all The Mimic and the Appalachians. I rented an isolated cabin in Appalachia, work remotely. I didn't know I was sitting on top of a cave system. I'm a software engineer based out of Raleigh, North Carolina. 2 months ago, I was dangerously close to burning out. I had a massive project deadline looming. My apartment building was undergoing constant, deafening renovations, and I just needed silence. I went on Airbnb and found it listing for an A-frame cabin deep in the Appalachian Mountains, near the Tennessee border. It was incredibly cheap for a month-long rental. The host's description posted about the high-speed satellite internet and the absolute privacy. The nearest neighbor was 5 miles down a gravel logging road. It sounded like exactly what I needed. I arrived on a Tuesday. The cabin was beautiful, rustic, but well maintained, sitting on a high ridge, surrounded by dense ancient forest. For the first week, it was a paradise. I coded for 10 hours a day, drank coffee on the wraparound deck, and slept better than I had in years. The first sign that something was wrong was so subtle I almost dismissed it. It was day 8. I was sitting on the deck at twilight, having a FaceTime call with my older sister, Sarah, who lives in Ohio. We were laughing, catching up, and after I hung up, I stayed outside for a few minutes to watch the stars come out. From the dense tree line, about 50 yards down the ridge, I heard a sound. So stupid, I swear. It was a whisper, but the acoustics of the valley carried it perfectly. It was my sister's voice. The exact intonation, the exact cadence of a sentence she had spoken on our FaceTime call just 5 minutes earlier. I froze, the hair on my arm standing up. "Hello," I called out, my voice cracking slightly. Total silence. I convinced myself it was an echo. The mountains did weird things with sound, right? I went inside, locked the heavy deadbolt, and drew the blinds. But I couldn't shake the creeping feeling of being watched. Things escalated 3 nights later. I was working late, around 2 a.m. The cabin was dead silent. Except for the hum of the refrigerator. Suddenly, the motion sensor floodlight on the back deck clicked on, flooding the woods with a harsh white light. I got up from my desk and walked to the sliding glass door. I cupped my hands around my face and peered through the glass into the woods. At first I just saw trees and the empty deck. Then I looked down, crouched directly beneath the window. Just inches from the glass on the outside was a person. At least my brain desperately tried to categorize it as a person, to stave off the panic. It was completely hairless, its skin a sickly translucent white, like something that had lived its entire life in total darkness. I could see the blue veins mapping its scalp and back. It was painfully emaciated, every rib protruding sharply against the skin. But the proportions were entirely wrong. Its arms and legs were impossibly long, folding at sharp, multi-jointed angles, like a praying mantis. It was perched on all fours, its long, spindly fingers ending in thick, blackened nails that dug into the wooden neck. I stumbled backwards, a gasp ripping from my throat. The movement caught his attention. The creature snapped its head up to look at me. It had no eyes, just smooth, pale skin where the sockets should be, with two small, slit-like nostrils beneath. Its mouth was huge, a gaping, lipless tear stretching ear to ear, filled with rows of needle-thin translucent teeth. It stared at me through the glass, its head tilting unnaturally to the side, like a curious bird. Then it opened its horrible mouth, and my sister's voice came out, perfectly replicated, but utterly devoid of emotion. So stupid, I swear to God. I scrambled away from the door, knocking over my chair, and ran to the kitchen counter to grab my car keys and heavy maglite flashlight. I was leaving. I didn't care about my laptop. I didn't care about my clothes or the security deposit. But when I turned back toward the living room, the floodlight clicked off. The deck was plunged into darkness. I stood frozen in the kitchen for what felt like hours. I didn't hear it leave. I just heard the wind. Eventually the sun began to rise. In the harsh light of day, my panic subsided, just enough to let rational thought creep back in. Maybe it was an hallucination. I had been staring at a screen for maybe weeks. Maybe it was a sick animal with mange. I went outside to check the deck. There was deep gouged scratch marks into the treated wood directly beneath the window. I packed my car. I was out of there. But when I turned the key in the ignition, my SUV sputtered and died. I tried again. Nothing. The engine wouldn't even turn over. I popped the hood. The main battery cable had been severed, not chewed through by a rat. It was severed cleanly, as if pinched between sharp shears or teeth. Panic, cold and absolute, flooded my chest. I was stranded. I pulled out my phone and called 911. No service. The satellite Wi-Fi router inside the cabin was dead, too. I checked back of the house. The thick coaxial cable running down from the satellite dish on the roof had been ripped violently off the wall. It was isolating me. I spent the rest of the day fortifying the cabin. I dragged the heavy oak dining table in the front of the sliding glass door. I pushed the sofa against the front door. I closed every blind, locked every window. I armed myself with a heavy iron fire poker from the hearth and my maglite. As twilight approached, the forest went completely, unnaturally dead. No birds, no insects, just a suffocating silence. At 10 p.m., the clicking started. Tick, 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 tick. It sounded like echolocation, coming from the roof. I stood in the center of the living room, staring up at the vaulted ceiling. I could hear it crawling up there. The scuttling of long, multi-jointed limbs against the shingles. It was moving too fast, scrambling back and forth across the length of the cabin in seconds. Then the power went out. The cabin was plunged into darkness so thick it felt tangible. I clicked on my maglite, the tight bright beam cutting through the pitch black. From the front porch, I heard a heavy thud. It dropped down from the roof. The handle of the front door slowly began to turn. The deadbolts held, but the creature didn't stop trying. It rattled the handle violently and ferociously. Then the mimicry began. It wasn't my sister this time. It was a cacophony of stolen sounds. The sound of a crying baby, the screech of a dying rabbit, the sound of a man coughing. It was shuffling through its horrific audio library, trying to find the bait that would make me open the door. I backed into the narrow hallway that led to the bathroom. Clutched the fire poker so tightly that my knuckles ached. "Go away!" I screamed. My voice sounded pathetic, quivering and weak. The rattling stopped. For a long moment there was nothing. Then I heard the sound of glass shattering in the master bedroom at the end of the hall. It didn't break the glass with a rock. It simply pushed against the pane until pressure shattered it inward. I heard the soft, wet thwump of its long limbs hitting the carpet. Tick, 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 tick. It was in the house. I retreated into the bathroom, the only room without a window. I locked the flimsy wooden door and backed into the shower stall, pointing my flashlight at the doorknob. I heard it dragging itself down the hallway. It didn't walk. It pulled itself along the floorboards, its sharp nails scraping against the wood. It sounded massive, heavy, yet horribly fluid. It stopped outside the bathroom door. I held my breath. My lungs burned. I pressed my back against the cold tiles of the shower, shaking uncontrollably. Beneath the gap, at the bottom of the door, the beam of my flashlight caught something pale. It was one of its hands. Long, white, skeletal. Fingers slid under the door, feeling the floor tiles. The skin looked wet and slick. Then, from the other side of the thin wooden door, my voice spoke back to me. "Go away!" It had perfectly mimicked my terrified scream from 10 minutes ago. The creature slammed its body against the bathroom door. The wood splintered with deafening cracks. The door frame buckled. It hit it again, and the door burst open, slamming against the wall. I aimed the maglite directly into the doorway. It was squeezed into the narrow hall. Its impossibly long limbs contorted to fit the space. Its pale, eyeless face was turned directly towards me. Its massive jaw unhinged, revealing rows of translucent needle-like teeth. But when the 1,000-lumen beam of my tactical flashlight hit its face, it reacted violently. It threw its long, skeletal arms up to cover its face, letting out a shriek that I could only describe as a mix between a human scream and the grinding of metal. The light physically hurt it. It lived in complete darkness. The high-intensity LED was burning its sensitive skin. It thrashed backwards, tearing the hallway drywall with its claws. As it scrambled to escape the light, I didn't stop to think. I charged forward, keeping the beam directly on it, swinging the heavy iron fire poker blindly. The iron connected with a sickening crunch against its shoulder. The creature shrieked again, a deafening, vibrating sound, and scrambled backward with terrifying speed. It bolted out the hallway, through the living room, and launched itself out the broken bedroom window, disappearing into the pitch-black woods. I didn't lower the flashlight until the sun came up. I stood in the corner of the living room for 6 hours, watching the broken window. At first light, I grabbed my keys, walked out the front door, and started walking down the 5-mile logging road. I walked until I hit the paved highway. And hitched a ride with a passing trucker to the nearest town. I called a tow truck for my car, paid them extra to retrieve my laptop. I never went back to that cabin. I ate the cost of the rental. When I got back to Riley, I started researching the specific area where the cabin was built. I pulled up geological survey maps of the county. The ridge where the cabin sits is located directly above an uncharted, unmapped offshoot of one of the deepest limestone cave systems in North America. There are sinkholes, natural vertical shafts, scattered all throughout those woods that drop hundreds of feet into total lightless depths. I don't know what that thing was, an evolutionary offshoot, a subterranean predator that only surfaces at night to hunt. What terrifies me the most isn't just the fact that it exists, it's the mimicry. It learns, it copies, and sometimes when my apartment is completely quiet at night, I swear I can hear my own terrified voice whispering from the air vents, "Go away." And that has been the Mimic and the Appalachian. And that has been the Mimic and the Appalachians. I hope y'all enjoyed the video. Have a wonderful rest of your day. And don't forget to subscribe and follow for more. Goodbye.